What is the deal with the larynx, you guys? And what is it supposed to be doing when we're singing? Is it supposed to be up? Is it supposed to be down? It is super confusing. I am Laura with Singing Tips from LJDstudios, where we talk about singing in ways that actually make sense. And today we are talking about the larynx. If you can't tell, I am super pregnant and I am about to have a baby in just a matter of days now, really. But if I sound like I'm talking up here in my voice teacher voice, it's because I am. It's because I've got like acid reflux induced bronchitis going on here. It's just another fun side effect of being pregnant. But fun vocal health tip, acid reflux can give you a cough. Or it can sometimes just make you hoarse, right? Which you'll kind of hear in my voice. So that's what's going on there. Just wanted to put that little disclaimer on there. And before we get into all the fun stuff about the larynx, just another reminder, make sure you download my 3-tiered approach to becoming a better singer. I want to make sure you have it. Link is in the description. Make sure you download that. Okay, so back to this idea of your larynx. First of all, what is your larynx? You will sometimes hear it referred to as your voice box. If you're still like, okay, cool, well, where is that, right? You can actually touch it. You can feel it. And you can see it kind of on me pretty well. But what I would encourage you to do is to kind of move your hand around on, like, find this thing here that sort of protrudes from your throat and move your hand around a little bit and swallow. When you find a spot, when you swallow where you really feel a lift of something, that something that is lifting is your larynx. Okay? And then the other thing you might do is try yawning. It's not quite as big of a sensation, but you should feel that same fleshy thing that you're holding on to lower. Okay? So that is your larynx. And inside of your larynx are your vocal cords. And they attach through, I don't know, different muscles and stuff to your larynx. So movement in your larynx translates to movement in your vocal cords. So if you guys don't know this about me already, I came from a classical singing background, specifically opera. And in that world, a lowered larynx is like all the rage. It's all we talk about. Keep your larynx low, keep your larynx low, keep your larynx low. To a certain extent, that's true. We look more for a tilt in the larynx, and I'm going to get into that in a minute. But a classical style of singing is a very specific sound. It's a little dark. It is more head voice dominant. And if you're confused about what head voice is, check out my video, Demystifying Vocal Registers. I've got that linked in the description as well. But it's a more head voice dominant style of singing, like ooh, ooh, ooh. And as we move up, ooh, there's minimal movement up and down in the larynx. But the truth of the matter is, if your larynx doesn't move, your vocal cords don't move. And in order to change pitch, your vocal cords either need to lengthen and thin or shorten and thicken. That's what helps us change pitch. It also is what helps us change tone quality. And just quick aside, if you don't know the difference between pitch and tone, pitch has to do with how high or how low something is, or literally like its frequency. Like this is high and then this is low. Tone has to do with the overall sound that we produce. So for instance, is kind of a pressed sound, and kind of a breathy sound. Both the same pitch, but they had different tone qualities. So the way you configure your vocal cords into that longer, thinner setting or shorter, thicker setting will help determine the tone and the pitch. But the only way to get your vocal cords to do that is for the larynx to move in some capacity. So if we're coming back to this idea of a more classical sound, one way the larynx can move is to tilt or tip forward. And that's going to pull the vocal cords longer for those higher pitches or shorter for our lower pitches. Cool. How do you do that? This one I find is helped along mostly through sound and sensation. So I like to take my hands up next to my ears and move them forward, like I'm turning a dial forward. Okay? And then think like kind of a yodely sound and go ah, ooh, ah, ooh, ah. And when you say ah, I didn't time that perfectly. When you say ah, your hands should be here. And when you say ooh, your hands should be here. Ah, ooh, ah, ooh, ah, ooh, ah, ooh, ah, ooh, ah, ooh. And the larynx is kind of doing like this when you do that. Ah, ooh, ah, ooh, ah, ooh. And it might be lifting a little as well. It's like up and forward, up and forward. And that's helping pull you into that longer, thinner setting of the vocal cords. Now, if I want to sing in a more contemporary style, which is going to be a more chest dominant style, I do need the larynx to lift so that I can go, ah. So, as we discussed previously, when you swallow, you can feel your larynx lift. If you have sort of a protruding Adam's apple, the visual can be helpful too. You'll see it rise and lower, right? Or you can just hold on to the structure, right, of it raising and lowering. But another way to just make your larynx lift is to try to make a thinner and brighter sound as you go higher. Ah, and I can feel that. Ah. So when we go higher, the larynx goes higher, and when we go lower, the larynx goes lower. Now, for lower pitches, we do want a somewhat lowered larynx, although you can overdo that. But the way to do that would be to sort of mimic the sensation of a yawn. Ah, ah, ah. And now my larynx is way down here. Ah, ah, ah. But if I try to stay there, ah, as I go higher, you're going to reach an end cap. Ah, right? And eventually it has to sort of flip over. So I think it's really helpful, you guys, if you can just get a sense of where your larynx is and what it's doing. And remember that when you go for a yawny sound or like that darker quality in general, ah, oh, ooh, and that's typically linked to a more classical style. It doesn't have to be, but that's sort of usually what we associate it with, right? If you think about that, that's going to give you a more lowered larynx. If you go for this like brighter, witchier, twangier, more nasally sound, then your larynx is going to lift. Right? And if you want to sing in a more contemporary style, you want your larynx to lift as you go higher. If you want to sing in a more classical style, you want to just sort of tilt forward. And so you're going to maintain some of that like yawny feeling of like, ooh, ooh, ooh. Right now my larynx is a little bit lower and it's tilting versus where it's really, really rising. Okay. So no hard and fast rules, but it's really good to know that you do need a certain amount of mobility through your larynx. It's not just going to stay in one position the whole time. Don't try to hold it there. That's not going to work out. Let it move. And depending on the style or the tone or the pitch that you're going for, it's either going to move up or down, or it's going to move forward. So I hope that cleared up the question of what is your larynx and how is it supposed to move. I really like to steer away from this idea of anything supposed to. To me, it's not, there's not right, there's wrong, there's what do you want to do, right? And then there's just experimentation and seeing what works. So if you like what you're hearing here, if you've got other questions, be sure to like, comment, subscribe, download my free guide. Let me know what you guys want to learn, and good luck. Happy singing.